First up for spoilers today, we have Neheb Dreadlord Champion. It is 2 red for a 5/4 legendary creature with trample, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, you may discard any number of cards, draw that many cards, and add that much red mana to your mana pool. That mana does not empty until the end of the turn. Pretty interesting card. Definitely seems like a finisher in a deck that has a couple of cards left over that it doesn't want, to try to turn those into something else, adding mana so that you can cast those cards in the second main. I feel this card really needed haste to make it good. If Neheb had haste, you could get it down on turn 4, hit them with it, it would trample over any blockers, turn 1 or 2 cards into new cards, and you'd gain a little bit of mana so you could play Neheb and those cards in the same turn. As it stands with just the trample and no haste, I can't really see a place for this. Mono red might like a finisher like this, but its biggest problem is that its spells are cheap, so Neheb's probably the last thing you have to cast. I'm going to give Neheb a 1 spark rating. I really don't think this card's going to see any play. Next up is Dreadlord Butcher. It is black-red for a 1/1 zombie warrior with haste. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, you put a +1/+1 counter on it, and whenever it dies, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So this is a pretty powerful card. It is a little bit slow, but it generally will be a 2/2 the turn it comes into play, because most of the time it will get in for that damage straight away. It can definitely snowball and get out of control, and then on the way out it will kill something else or dome your opponent for a bunch of damage. I could definitely see it getting played alongside cards like Judith in an aggressive red-black deck if such a deck were to see play. As it is right now, it doesn't really have a home, but I am going to give it a 3 spark rating. I think this card will definitely see some play in Standard. Eternal Taskmaster is 1 and a black for a 2/3 zombie that enters the battlefield tapped, and whenever it attacks you may pay 2 and a black to return a creature from your graveyard to your hand. So for the whole effect to get back 1 creature, it is 5 mana for a 2/3. Now we see Gravedigger is a 4 mana 2/2 that has the same effect, and you get the card straight away. You don't have to work out a situation to get a good attack in. This card isn't good enough for Standard, and I think it's okay for Draft. 2/3 for 2 is a decent sized body, but at the end of the day you really need to find a way to get that card off it before it becomes really playable. I'm going to give this a 1 spark rating. This card won't see any play. Alright, next we have a card I'm sure a lot of people are pretty excited to see. It's Fibblethip the Lost. It's 1 and a blue for a 1/1 legendary creature Homunculus. When it comes into play, you draw a card, and if it was cast or entered from your library, you draw 2 cards instead. When it becomes a target of a spell, you shuffle him back into the library. So really cool flavor here. Fibblethip has been lost for ages and ages, so I love the idea that when it gets targeted, he disappears, and then you got to find him again. And if you do find him, you get a pretty decent payoff of drawing 2 cards. As a 1/1 though, it does die to a lot of things, and there isn't really a deck at the moment that would want a card like this. I'd love to see this card see some play in Standard, but as it stands right now, it's going to get a 1 spark rating. Gleaming Overseer, 1 blue-black for a 1/4 zombie wizard. When it enters the battlefield, amass. Simple amass card, very clean. Will definitely see play in the amass deck in Limited. The 1/4 body blocks all day long, and it plays right into the game plan that you're looking for. As for Standard, unfortunately the stat line's just not good enough. Even in a dedicated amass deck, I can't imagine people will play this card. Due to this fact, Gleaming Overseer gets a 1 spark rating. Grim Initiate is 1 red mana for a 1/1 zombie warrior with first strike, and when it dies, amass 1. So this is actually a pretty powerful tempo 1-drop, because when it dies, it leaves that extra body around, and then future Grim Initiates also add to that body if it isn't dealt with quickly. As a tempo card, I don't think this will see play in the current build of Mono Red, but I could definitely see post-rotation this seeing some Standard play. Because of that, I'm going to give Grim Initiate a 2 spark rating. Totally Lost is 4 and a blue for an instant put target non-land permanent on top of its owner's library. This was the original card that Fibblethip was featured on back in Return to Ravnica, and it did see some play in Limited there. If the format is slow enough, I think this will be a removal spell you'll be happy to play, but it definitely won't see any of that play in Standard. It gets a 1 spark rating. Storev Devkaran Lich is 1 black-green for a 5/4 legendary creature zombie elf wizard. It has trample, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, you can return to your hand target creature or planeswalker card that wasn't put there this combat. So there's a lot of text going on, but at its baseline, it is a 5/4 for 4. In current Standard, that probably isn't playable on its own, but with it being a legendary and immune to cast down, as well as having a pretty powerful second ability, I think this card may see a little bit of play. I'm going to give it a 2 spark rating, because Sultai decks have wanted this sort of value engine before, and the trample on this card means that you can't just chump block it to stop the effect. You do have to put a real creature or a real removal spell into killing this thing. Lazo Tap Plating, 1 and a blue for an instant. It says amass 1, and then you and permanents you control gain hexproof until end of turn. So So this is a protection spell, the sort of thing that mono blue has been interested in the past. This one does cost 2, but it does make a creature as well. It might help them against some decks that are trying to beat them on the ground while killing their creatures, because it does make a chump blocker and allows them the tempo to maybe finish a game. As it stands right now, I don't think this is something that deck wants. It already has some good options that are better than this, so I'm going to give this a 1 spark rating. Lazo Tap Behemoth, 4 and a black for a 5/4 zombie hippo with flavor text that I cannot read yet. This is a draft card and a bad one at that. It gets a 1 spark rating and probably won't even make the cut in most of your draft decks. Lazo Tap Reaver, 1 and a black for a 1/2 zombie beast. When it enters the battlefield, amass 1. So on the baseline, it is a 1/2 and a 1/1 for 2 mana, but sometimes it can also buff one of your army creatures that's already in play. This might be a pretty decent card in the amass deck in draft, but again, it's probably a 1 spark card for standard playability. Cool thing to mention with these, the Lazo Tap creatures. Lazo Tap is the mineral that was mined on Armenket and infused with magical energies and put upon the zombies that Nicol Bolas created to make them basically indestructible. So it's kind of cool to see all these traditional creature types as zombies with the Lazo Tap plating as well. Invasive Manticore is a 6 mana common. It's a 4/5 creature. When it enters the battlefield, you amass 2. So this is just a curve topper, I guess, for the amass deck in limited. It won't see any standard play and gets a 1 spark rating. So that's the third day of spoilers done, and we've had some pretty sweet cards revealed. What are you most excited to get your hands on? Leave a comment below and let me know. I will be covering the rest of the cards as they come out, so make sure to like and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss a video. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.